Hey there everyone, and I thank you guys so much for tuning in to yet another episode of My Orchid Adventures with me, Maria Young. So in today's episode, we're going to talk to you guys all about pruning back vanda roots. Now, you guys know I just did a video in regards to how uncontrollable some of these vanda roots can get. And trust me, I have about 100 plus vandas, so I definitely know exactly how wild and crazy they can get. So you want to know, if you decide to prune the vanda roots back, can the vanda actually grow as normal? Well, it absolutely can, and I have to tell you, there are actually several growers that do it in this manner. They do it as a regimen and regularly scheduled, either once a year or once every 6 months, and their vandas do just fine. The main thing that you have to be concerned about is make sure that your vanda is healthy, and make sure that your vanda still has sufficient roots to go ahead and still absorb moisture and nutrients as normal. Now, there is a reason why I don't do it, and I don't particularly recommend you doing it. I'm not so particularly keen with cutting back or pruning the orchid. We do have to understand that anytime we make a cut or an incision on an orchid, it is a wound that is open and exposed to germs, bacteria, and also fungus. So you have to understand that we are posing a risk to the health of the vanda. So in my opinion, if you don't have to cut the vanda, then don't. And also the other reason why I wouldn't do it, because believe it or not, it can actually have an opposite effect. And of course, folks, if you decide to go ahead and prune your vanda roots, one of my biggest suggestions to you is to please be cautious, please have the proper tools and equipment, and please make sure you sanitize every time you make that cutting. And of course, make sure that it heals properly as well. You want to be cautious, and you definitely don't want to pose a risk of infections to your vanda orchid. Okay, so I talked to you guys about the adverse opposite reaction that can take place when you cut your vanda roots. So let me go ahead and show you an example of exactly what I'm talking about. Let's go check it out, and let's do it right now. Okay, so we are talking about pruning back these vanda roots. And I also talked to you guys in my prior video exactly why some of these roots can grow so wild and crazy. And if you guys haven't seen that video, I would recommend that you watch that video now, and it's going to give you a better understanding of exactly what I'm talking about. And if you want to see that video, just click right here. It'll take you directly to that video. Okay, so I use these specific terminology of pruning, and in garden terminology, what pruning means is when we go ahead and cut back our plants in effort to cut away certain portions that might not be as healthy, and also in effort, especially for very tall lanky plants, in effort so that they would actually grow more abundantly and bush up or become thicker. So with that in mind, I'm going to show you exactly how these roots, if you cut them back, can actually get even that much more thicker. And as I told you before, I don't actually cut back my vanda roots. I actually love the wonderful thick appearance that they have. I believe it is one of the most beautiful attributes and one of the wonderful characteristics of a vanda. So I just choose to enjoy them. Now, the examples that I'm going to give you are actual vanda roots that have fizzled out or dried off at the tips. And then when they grew back, da-na-na-na, surprise, surprise. And this right here is such a perfect example. If you look in the center right here, you are seeing that blackened area. That blackened area is actually the tip where it did dry up. So that's the dried up root tip. Now, if we take a look around the dried up root tip, you are actually seeing so many roots that have grown from that area. Indeed, showcasing the pruning effect. Instead of minimizing the number of roots, roots, we actually accelerated the amount of root growth here. So indeed, this is actual and factual and is a probability that can take place. And right here is yet another great example. Again, in the center, dried up root tip, and there you have it. All of those roots that are growing from that dried out root tip. So again, that pruning effect has taken place once more. And you know what? I can actually go on for days showing you examples of where this has taken place. So indeed, this is an effect that you have to be mindful of. Instead of minimizing, you can actually accelerate the abundance of root growth and not minimizing it, but making it even more bushier and more out of control. So just keep that in mind, folks. Now, of course, if you are having a difficult time in growing your vanda roots, this is a probability and also an option for you to try. Now, of course, I strongly suggest again making sure that you sanitize your equipment and also your orchid so that it can bounce back properly and that it does not risk any type of infection to the orchid itself. Also, be mindful that the orchid has to be healthy to ensure proper root growth and to ensure that it will properly grow. So again, this is an option, but it's going to be totally up to you on whether or not you take that risk because the outcome is definitely not certain. And also, folks, please be mindful we are talking about live roots here. We're talking about pruning live roots. We're not talking about cutting back dead roots. Now, if they're dead roots, that is not an issue at all, and it's definitely a lot easier to go ahead and cut those off and indeed making it a lot cleaner so that you'll have healthy live roots and not the dead roots. And there you have it, folks. This is an absolute orchid wrap. I hope I answered some of your questions. And of course, folks, I do want to get your opinion on what you feel about pruning back these vanda roots. And definitely, if you guys have done this before, how has it worked out for you? And if you guys have any other special tips and suggestions on how we can grow our vandas better, definitely post those comments below. Sure would love to hear from you guys. And of course, we always learn from your tips, suggestions, and experiences. So definitely post those comments and suggestions below. And if you guys like this video, please be sure to give it a green thumbs up. And if you guys want to stay tuned to the latest and greatest orchid adventures, you guys know what to do. Go ahead and subscribe. You guys have to know I am on Facebook, so definitely if you want to join me there as well, I would love to have you right on My Orchid Adventures on Facebook. And if you guys want to write me or send me something, you guys can do that as well, and you can do it at the address right below. Again, I thank you guys so much. Really do love and appreciate all of you. And that's it, and that's all, folks. And as you guys already know, I do love you guys all. Mwah, 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 and